On May 9th, 2025, Moscow marked the 80th anniversary of the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany with a grand spectacle on Red Square. But this wasn't just a look back. It was a carefully orchestrated message from a country still deeply entrenched in war, this time in Ukraine. The run-up to the event was tense. Moscow came under a wave of drone attacks, reportedly from Ukraine. Flights were grounded, defenses were on high alert, and the city braced for disruptions. Still, the Kremlin pushed forward with the parade, defiant and determined. Over 11,500 troops filled Red Square, flanked by tanks, drones, ballistic missiles, and more. A muscular display of might aimed at both remembering history and projecting strength. The parade wasn't just for domestic eyes. More than 20 foreign leaders attended, making a clear statement that Russia wasn't as isolated as the West might hope. President Vladimir Putin used the spotlight to draw a straight line from World War II to today's battlefield in Ukraine. In his view, Russia is once again fighting fascism. Only now, the enemy wears a different uniform. His message was unmistakable. The past justifies the present. Not everyone agreed. While some countries stood beside Russia during the celebrations, others condemned the event outright, calling it propaganda wrapped in patriotism. The contrast between celebration and conflict painted a vivid picture of the world's fractured politics in 2025. Moscow became the epicenter of international attention in early May as delegations began to arrive. Despite Western sanctions and diplomatic tensions, Russia extended invitations widely, and some surprising RSVPs came back. Among them, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, signaling strengthened ties with two major global players. Also present were Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, and Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, a mix of strategic alliances and symbolic gestures. On the eve of the parade, President Putin hosted an elaborate Kremlin dinner for the guests. It was more than just a meal. It was a stage for diplomacy, signaling that Russia still commands international clout in certain circles, even if the West isn't at the table. Then came the big day. Red Square turned into a stage of power and pageantry. More than 13,000 servicemen marched in sync. 13 foreign military units joined them, among them troops from China, North Korea, Egypt, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Many of these countries were making their first appearance in the parade, adding to the international flavor. The procession was led by the iconic T-34 tank, a relic of World War II. Behind it, a parade of high-tech weapons systems, including Armata tanks, Iskander missiles, S-400 air defenses, and Yars ICBMs. For the first time, drones like the Zala Lancet and Geran 2 took center stage, reflecting modern warfare's evolution. In the skies, a powerful flyover feared everything from strategic bombers to fighter jets, culminating in Su-25s painting the Russian flag in the air. It was loud, proud, and unapologetically military. Putin's speech was the emotional and political centerpiece. He honored the sacrifices of World War II and simultaneously accused the West of trying to erase Soviet history. He denounced what he called a cult of Nazism in Ukraine, framing the current conflict as part of a historic battle for truth and justice. He also gave rare praise to World War II allies, the US, UK, France, and China, acknowledging their role in defeating Hitler. But his main focus was the Russian soldiers fighting in Ukraine today. Calling them heroes, he promised government support for their families, backed by a newly signed decree. The ceremony concluded with Putin laying flowers at the tomb of the unknown soldier, a solemn nod to the past, and a moment of calm amid an otherwise thunderous display of nationalism. One of the most striking scenes came when Putin warmly greeted Colonel General Kim Yong-bok, head of North Korea's military delegation. Their handshake wasn't just diplomatic courtesy, it was a symbol of growing military cooperation. Reports suggest North Korea has sent around 15,000 troops to support Russian forces, especially near the Kursk region. In return, North Korea is reportedly gaining access to Russian military tech, including drones and missile systems. This was the first time North Korean troops marched in a Russian Victory Day parade. Their presence wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic. This moment underscored the strength of the defense pact signed in 2020-24 between Moscow and Pyongyang, which officially came into force in December. In a world of shifting alliances, this one is now firmly in place. The Russian public responded to the parade with strong interest. TV ratings soared to a 5-year high, with nearly 87% of viewers in major cities tuning in. But despite the patriotic fervor, the event was scaled down. Only about 8,000 troops marched, down from previous years, and just 51 vehicles were showcased. Notably absent, Russia's latest tanks, likely deployed or damaged in the war. Western leaders weren't impressed. Poland's Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, blasted European leaders who attended, calling their presence shameful. EU officials echoed the criticism, accusing Russia of using the parade to mask its aggression in Ukraine. Still, the attendance of leaders from China and North Korea sent a clear signal. Russia is building its own coalition, one that stands apart from Western influence. And while the parade ended in Moscow, the political aftershocks rippled across the globe. Just days later, Western leaders, including those from Britain, France, and Germany, traveled to Kyiv to meet with President Zelensky. Their mission, to show solidarity and push for a 30-day ceasefire. Ukraine expressed willingness. Russia gave a cautious maybe. Meanwhile, the European Union pledged nearly €2 billion in military aid to Ukraine, funded in part by frozen Russian assets. There were also renewed calls to prosecute Russian leaders for war crimes, an effort to counter Russia's narrative with legal consequences. Inside Russia, the parade stirred national pride and unity. Putin's message resonated with many, but critics warned that glorifying past victories to justify current wars is a dangerous game. Some drew parallels to authoritarian regimes of the past, accusing the Kremlin of rewriting history in real time. Ultimately, the 2025 Victory Day Parade was more than a military ceremony. It was a window into a world split down the middle. Russia's narrative of heroism and resistance clashed directly with international outrage over its actions in Ukraine. In the end, it wasn't just about tank jets. It was about who you stand with, what story you believe, and where the world is headed next.